About routing. What does that mean to you guys in your other stacks in the context of, Python or Java as far as what you've learned? Views, okay. That's good.
Like the URLs.
The URL, that's good. I like that. Okay, cool. Yeah, and we're talking about routing now in the context of a single page application. So what does it mean for something to be a single page application? From what you guys have gathered so far, yes.
It's going to render components of the route. Like if I create an about component, it's not going to reload the page. It's going to just get the about component.
Ah, okay. All right. Yeah, you're right where you need to be. So the idea behind a single page application is that when we give back a page to our users, are we giving them different HTML pages depending on what route they hit?
No, it's the same.
No, they're always going to get that same index.html, right? So that's what we mean when we say that it is a single page application. It doesn't necessarily mean that there is only one URL. Okay? So I just want to make that clear. So when we change to a different URL, as Erica was saying, it's not that we're giving them a whole new page, it's that we're sort of giving them a different part of our application. Okay? So when we go to a different URL, instead of just giving them this brand new whatever it is .html, we're saying, here, take this component and go ahead and render this now. Okay? So the feel of it is very different. We're not kind of left waiting for this page to refresh and stuff. It's a bit snappier. Okay? All right. Any questions about kind of routing in the context of a single page application?
So it'd be separate main app files or calling on separate components with the HTML?
Yeah, I would think of it as calling on separate components. Yeah, and syntactically we'll see how that works shortly. So, in order for us to do routing, it's not actually something that's built into React, so we need to install a third-party library. There's more than one, but the one that I'm going to show you guys is called Reach Router. Okay? So in your terminal, you guys are going to do npm install, and we're going to say @reach/router.
And I had a question about npm install both Axios and something such as this.
Yeah.
So do we have to reinstall it for every project? Or do we, every project?
Yeah. Yeah, because notice when we do this install here, we weren't doing it as a global install. In contrast to something like NodeMon, which we want to use everywhere, that one we were installing globally. Yeah.
So we have to be inside the folder of our project when we install this?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So we're good there. Let me close out this terminal window. We shouldn't need that anymore. All right. So in order to use this library, I'm going to need to import it, right? So back to my app component, let's say this is where I want to establish all of these routes that we're talking about. And I'm going to import certain things from this library called Reach Router. So the first thing that I probably want to import, because I'm in my main app component, is this thing called a link component. Okay, and we'll get that again from @reach_router. Okay, and let's just let's just drop a link into here and see sort of what that looks like. So I'm going to create a link inside my app, and I'm going to say to, and I'll set that equal to /. You guys know what / means in this case?
The homepage?
Yeah, it's basically going to be the index, right? So for us, that's going to be localhost 3000. Okay, and then inside this link component, I want to put whatever text I want to show up here. So I could put home if I wanted that to go back home, right? And then I will end the link component. All right, now let's go back to our app here that is running. I thought it was running. Oh, here we go. Okay, so I've got this link called home. And this looks like any other link, right? It looks like a regular ahref that we would create on our own. So if I inspect this here, you guys will see, indeed, it is an anchor tag, right? And it also has the href set to /. So it looks exactly like a regular anchor tag that you guys would just create in your HTML. But the thing is, it has some special powers. Because like I said, it's not going to cause us to make that brand new HTTP request and do a hard refresh. Okay? It's actually going to prevent the default behavior of a link, which is just that, right? The default behavior is it's going to make this new HTTP request and serve us up a brand new page. All right? So let's create some component that we want to have a route to, just to kind of test this out. So down inside my, my app component here, in order for us to use routes, we need to import this other thing called router. Okay? And again, this is just going to be a component that we can use down here in our JSX. So I'll create this router component. And then inside there, this is where we're going to put our individual routes for our application. So in order for us to have some different routes, I want to also create a folder called views. What do you guys think this will hold? That should look pretty familiar to you, right? We're going to have separate views. Now in this case, since we're in React, instead of these being entire HTML files or something like that, they're just going to be components. They're just going to look like any other component that we've been working with. So nothing special going on there. Okay? So inside my views folder, I'll just create, we'll just call it like some view.js, just to kind of get our feet wet and see how this works. We need to import React in the same way that we always do. Okay. And then here, let's just create our function. So we'll create function some view. For now, it takes in nothing, and then we're just going to return out a div that says hello from some view. Okay. Got to export that, of course. Okay. And now to use that, I also need to import that up here, right? So we'll say import some view from, where am I going to get that from? /views and then some view. Okay? So to have that inside my routes, all I need to do is put that component, some view, and then I need to say what its path is. Okay, so let's say our path is some view. It's pretty clever, right? Okay, and now let's make our link actually go to some view. So we'll change that up here. We'll say this is going to lead to some view. Some view. All right, let's load up our application, and here we go. Some view is there, but notice that we're still on the index route, right? We're on this like quote home page. Now if I click on some view, wow, did you see how fast that happened? So I instantly navigated, my URL changed up there, and that was a function of us using that link component. So reach router was giving us that. And then it also changed what was happening in the view. Did anything change with this link, by the way? Should anything have changed? No, because notice how the link that we've rendered here is outside of our router. So in other words, we're saying we want this link to show up for every page, no matter where we are. Okay? So no changes there. Now if I also had a link back to my home route, let's see here. Let's create that as well. Link to equals /, and we'll say home. Let's see if we can get back home, right? Oh, wow, no space here. Pretty nice, huh? Here, I'll show you guys how you can get a space in your HTML. It's pretty nasty, but you have to use curly braces and put an actual space in there. If you ever find that things are pushed so close together, because what React is doing is it's minifying everything. So now we have a little space in there.
Could you put 10 spaces in there and we're going to draw 10 spaces?
No. Not unless unless you did it like this. If
multiple
You're gonna be
copies of
cut
that.
down.
Dang.
God.
if it was
Like
if it was something like NBSP like that, if you did like 10 of those, these non-breaking space characters, that would work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or you would just have.
But really, if you want to create that kind of space after something, just put a right margin.
All right.
Right? Yeah. Okay. All right. So back to our page here. If I click on home, see, it took us right back to home, and we can very easily swap between these views, and you can see they're loading instantly. Right? It's not like one of those regular page refreshes that we're used to.
So that's our nav bar.
Yeah, that's our nav bar. Exactly. Pretty exciting.
Is that how it works in like with websites where they have that like header and then they have the middle part, they have the footer, and then once you click it, it's the only middle part that's kind of changing?
Well, it depends. So it depends if they're rendering out one of these single page applications. So if it's a single page application, yeah, it may only be that middle section that's changing. If it's a multi-page application, they're probably doing a hard refresh, and what you're getting is just a fully built page, right?
Yeah.
It's not just swapping out the middle content like what we're seeing here. All right. So that's pretty simple. Let's say that we wanted to do something a little more exciting where we were able to accommodate some different things in our routes, right? Where there was a routing parameter like an ID or something along those lines. So what we could do, instead of our SumView path here, let's just add something to it. I'm going to put a slash, and I'm going to say SumView/ID. Okay? And now, instead of SumView, this link up here, let's change that so that it's directing to 5, for instance, just to kind of test out this functionality. Now, inside my SumView component, or right here, I'm going to have access to a new prop called ID, which is going to tell me what was the ID that was included in that URL, so I can make use of it. Because in our applications, let's say I wanted to find a certain user or whatever, I'm going to need to know what that user's ID is, right? So you could think of this as a placeholder. It's going to hold some number, but we don't know what it is up front. Okay. All right, so let's do that. I saved it. Now if I go back into my SumView here, let's make SumView take in a prop called ID. And then I'll just put down here inside the view, we'll say the ID is, and then I'm just going to render out the ID. Okay, and let's try that. So let's click on SumView. Cool, and it's actually telling me what that ID is. So I was able to use that routing parameter to get some specific information about that particular route that we were on.
If we change the ID up there, will it change down here?
Yes, it will. So if I change this to 10, right? 10, and so forth. So anything that we put, I'll just put some ID here. There we go. So it's working every time, right? Cool. Questions about this so far before we go a little bit further? Yes,
What's the
Francis.
difference between doing it in views and components?
Well, the difference, there's no actual technical difference, and React really doesn't care where you put this stuff. This is just sort of for our own organizational sanity, So we'll have a specific folder for views. This is where we're keeping all of our main routes. Components would be for smaller things that maybe I'm using in more than one view. So if I had like a button component, for instance, or whatever, it would go in here, and then I would have a view import that if I wanted to have it showing up in that view.
So instead of doing it all on app, you're doing it like for, say for example, that particular, whatever it is showing, like the buttons, or sorry, the components will have the little stuff like the search bar or the button, and then put that all in that one.
Yeah, so think of components as sort of like the smaller pieces of the application. Views are larger,
Like a
larger
container,
things.
Yeah.
They're still both components as far as React is concerned. It's like it sees no difference in that sense. It's just for our organization, we're going to think about the views as the bigger building blocks. Okay. All right. Yes.
Can you say like from the from the sound view path, you pass in the thing is gonna be string, right? So if you want to get like numbers, you have to convert from string to number.
Yeah, that's a good point. So all of these, right here where we say ID, inside my sum view, the data type on that is always going to be a string. Yeah, so if we were to log that out here inside sum view, we would see console.log, and I'll say this is the type of the ID, and we'll just put type of ID, and we should see that it actually is a string, right? Go into console, I'll change the ID to 5. Okay, so it's telling us here that it is a string. So it's going to be a string no matter what. If you guys need to convert it into a number, you would have to do that manually.
So if you want to do like ID plus ID, and we got answer gonna be 10, so we're gonna do 2 strings.
If you're trying to add two
Yeah,
IDs.
Randomly,
Yeah, so if I wanted to convert this to, if I knew it was actually going to be numeric though, I could very easily put a plus in front of it, right? And that would turn it into number like that. Plus, yeah. Yeah, this is a quick way to convert something that if you know it's already numeric, but it just happens to be a string type, you could turn it back into a number like this.
So right there in the pops, you could put also the plus.
No, I can't just put plus up there.
Oh.
I could obviously create a new variable which is equal to plus ID if I wanted to, and that would be a number. Yeah.
So bar number equals plus ID.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Exactly. All right. So that's pretty good. Any other questions about sort of the basics of how this works? No? All right. So let's say that we wanted to have a default route component, something that if nothing else matches, I land on that. Let's turn our sum view into that. Actually, no, let's not. Let's create a new component. So we'll call this default view. All right, and then we'll say default in here. Okay. So in other words, if nothing matches, if I hit some route that wasn't found, I should land on this. So our default view could basically be, we could call this like a 404 page, not found, right? Default view .js, and then here we still need React. And then I'm going to export default function, default view, which is just going to return, yeah, 404 not found. Or, yeah, let's be a little more angry, right? That doesn't exist. Get out. All right, so we saved that, and let's import that guy as well. So import default view from Views default view. Okay. Now let's see what happens if we go to some URL that's not right. So I'll just type in bonk here. There we go. We're seeing what we want, right? Cool. So that's like it's like our catch-all route. So again, just to recap what I did there, I rendered that component and then I just specified a prop of default. Okay, that's telling reach router, go ahead and render this component if no other routes match. Okay. What if I wanted to have a redirect mechanism? So I knew that some people kept hitting some route that wasn't right, and I wanted to redirect them in some way. Well, there's a way that we could do that as well. So let's say I'm going to create like a login page, and I'm not really going to like write one up here, but we're just going to say we're creating login. Okay, and then we'll do default function. Oops. Login. Okay, and we'll just return some JSX here. Hi from login. Okay. So let's import that one as well, right? Import login from .use login. Okay, and let's say that I knew a bunch of users kept hitting the wrong login URL or something. Kept going to the wrong place. So what I can do is I can bring in this other thing. I'm sorry, actually I don't need to bring in something else, but what I need to do is put the component down here, so we'll say login. And then I can say redirect from, and this is the route that we're redirecting from, so let's say we'll call this wrong URL to, and then the correct URL is just going to be login. Okay? Ah, shoot. Does this happen to you guys sometimes where it creates like the end tag? I kind of prefer this syntax is a little bit shorter to just close, to make it self-closing. Okay, so let's also have our login component rendering here. So the path here will just be login. Oh, I did it again. Okay, and then finally we need this redirect component here. So where do we think we're going to get that? From reach router, right? They've given us this functionality that will allow us to redirect from one URL to another. And notice how it's just a component here. Okay, so I'm going to also import that, redirect. Alright, and let's see what happens if we try to go to wrong URL. Uh-oh, something went wrong. But one thing did go right. If you notice here, what's our new URL? We did get redirected to login. However, it created all these errors and it basically blew up my application. There's just one small change we need to make this actually work. All I need to do is inside this redirect, I need to say no throw. Okay? And what that's telling reach router is that if somebody hits this wrong URL, I don't want you to treat it like an actual error. I want you to just go ahead and redirect them to this to prop. Okay? So let's try that one more time.
So you always have to use the
No throw, yeah, unless you want your page to explode. You probably don't. Why would it what? Because that's how reach router was written. It was written in such a way that hitting the wrong URL is treated like an error unless you tell it explicitly, no, it's not. Okay, wrong URL. And now everything's working right. We just got redirected exactly the way that we wanted to, right? Okay. Questions about this? Let me go like this. All right. Any issues so far with what we're doing? We'll take a pulse and just like see where everyone's at here. Pretty cool that our routes are sort of just like components though, right? It makes it pretty friendly to use them. All right. What I wanted to do, and you guys could tell me if this is like too ambitious, but the API that we were using yesterday, we were retrieving some information, and I was thinking we could create a summary page that would have all of those individual launches. We'd be able to click on a launch, and then we'll go to another page which will go and grab the information about that launch individually. Yeah? All right. Cool. So let's create a launches view here. And actually, I think I already had a launches component, so let me just yank that out. So I'm going to move it. Right now it's inside my components folder, so I'm going to bring it over to the views folder. Okay? VS Code was nice enough to change the path for me. Yeah. And it might ask you if you want to do that if you start moving stuff around between folders. So the launches, we want to render that. We'll say the path will be launches. Okay, and then I'll create a link to it up here so that we can instantly go to it. So after home here, let's say link to equals launches. Okay, maybe I'll need some space in there too because React likes to sandwich stuff together. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Let's see what happens here when we actually go there. So if I click here, I encountered 2 children with the same key. SpaceX. What? It's saying two items have the same key of 106. Is that possible?
Yeah. Oh, I thought you do have a database.
Oh, I'm using the flight number. Maybe. Flight number is repeated. Darn it, SpaceX, you're killing me. All right, well, let's just change the key then. So if we go back into our launches component, instead of using that as the key, oh Christ. But now I'm like, wait, now we've extracted it to a component and we don't have the index, right? Garbage. I'm just going to ignore that warning, sorry. All right, so this part is working the way that we want it to mostly. But what we want to do is we want to create a link for each one of these so that we can go to the individual page for that launch. Okay? So let's go up here and let's actually import the reach router link component. So say import link from reach router. Okay. And then here where I'm rendering the name, let's put the link around that. So we'll say link. Oh, now I gotta drag this. Oh, by the way, there's a better way to do this. You guys can just wrap with an abbreviation. So link, there we go. That was Command-Shift-P if you're on a Mac. I think for PC it would be Control-Shift-P. Okay, so inside here I want to say where the link is going to direct to, right? and I'm going to direct it to launches / some ID. However, the ID is going to be dynamic, right? I mean, we don't know what it is because we're looping through all of the launches. So I can't use just quotes like this. I'm going to have to surround it in curly braces. So it's going to be that. Is there really not a launch ID in here? I could have sworn there was like...
Some 6-digit alphanumeric.
Oh, it's like a mission _ID.
Oh, it's mission, not flight.
Yeah.
There's a flight ID. Yeah, I changed it overnight on you guys. Sorry. We were doing missions, but I wanted to do launches instead.
Flight _ID.
Flight and underscore number. Oh, this, yeah, so this ID should be unique, right? Okay, let's use that then. So we'll say flight ID. Okay. And then here, let's do, so when we want to get one launch, let's see what we have to pass it. We have to pass it the flight number. Okay. So we're going to use the flight number in our link then, right? So I'm going to say launches, and then I'm going to concatenate onto that launch.flight number. Okay, and then this, let's see if that's rendering the way that we expect. So if we go back over here, if I hover over these links, you guys probably can't see it very well, but it actually is putting a number at the end of where we're going to go, right? Really hard to see. Okay, fair enough. All right, and then let's create a component that will show one individual launch, right? So I'll go inside of my views, and I'll create something called single launch.js. Okay, I'm going to import React. And I'm also going to bring in these things that we've been using. So I'm going to bring in useEffect, and then also useState. Why am I doing that? Yeah, the useEffect is going to be used so that I can make that API call. The useState is going to be because I don't have this launch information when I first load up this view, right? Which means that I'm also going to need Axios to make the actual API call, right? Okay, and let's create our function here. So function single launch. What do we want to take in from single launch? Sandwich? Is that what you said?
Single lunch.
Oh, single lunch. What do you guys think we want to take in as a prop here?
The data.
What's that again?
The data.
The data, we're not going to have all the data. We're going to have to actually go reach out and get it, right? But what will I need to know if I'm going to make that API call to get this launch? I need to know the ID, right? So where are we going to get that from? When we put it up here in the ID, who's going to hand it along to us? So it's going to be reach router doing that for us, right? So we're gonna have a new route that would be able to handle specific launch IDs. All right, so let's go back to our single launch here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to call useState, right? So I'm going to say const launch, oops, set launch equals useState. And what I'm going to set it to originally is I'm going to say I don't have any of this launch information, right? So I'm just going to set it to null. Okay, any questions about this? I want to make sure this is pretty clear why I'm doing this.
So if there's only one value in the state, you don't need to declare it doesn't have to be a map. Because up to this point I've been bringing it to an object with a label that matches the...
It does not have to be an object. Yes.
But there's only one
It
value.
can be one if you want it to be. It could really be anything you want.
Or
It
you
could
can
be
make it
it could be a
array, too.
boolean, it could be a string, it could be a number, whatever. Anything. So in this case, I'm just saying, when we first load this component, I don't have any data about the single launch. All I know is its ID, right? Okay. All right, and then I'm just going to do something down in here. So I'm going to say if no launch, in other words, if launch is still null, or we can be explicit about it. We can say if launch equals null, then what I want to return is just something saying loading. All right, so we'll say return loading dot dot dot. Okay. Otherwise, what I want to do is I want to return out some information about the launch. Okay. So we could say return. We'll get our JSX going, and then let's see what SpaceX is going to give us about a specific launch. So one launch is going to give us what? Oh, here's the example response. So it'll give us the mission name. Yeah, the year. Okay, so we could do that, right? So let's do the year and the mission name. So launch year, mission name. Okay, so I'll just create a little div here. We'll say H2 mission name. Actually, let's just output the mission name. Okay, so that's going to be launch mission name. And then I'll make a little p tag here, and we'll say year launch. What did it say? Year or something? Launch year. Oh gosh. Launch year. I hate when it's like you've got words repeated like that. Then it's kind of hard to read, right? All right. So now, what else do we want to do? We're almost there.
Set point launch date.
We haven't been able to do set launch yet because we need to make that API call, right? Okay. So to do that, let's use our use effect. Okay. What do I pass use effect? A callback function. Always. And then what? And then what's the second argument in this case?
Oh, the array.
Okay, so in this case, it's going to be an empty array because I only want it to run when the component's first loaded, right? All right. And inside here, what I want to do is I want to say Axios dot get, and then the URL is just going to be this endpoint up here. So if I try to copy that, drop that in there. Why does that look all funky? Oh, because there's a double. Okay, but instead of hard coding this ID, what do I need to do? Yeah, I can just use, I don't need braces because I'm not inside JSX, right? All I need to do is concatenate the ID. So string concatenation there. Okay. What's that going to return? Axios.get. Yes! We have somebody who got it. Because usually what happens is that question gets asked, is like, everyone says it's going to return the data. It doesn't though, right? It returns a promise. So how do we get the data then? Dot then. Okay, so now with our response, I'm just, sorry about that. I don't know why it does this crazy stuff. Then I'm going to say set launch against response.data, right? So that should work. All right, so we're in pretty good shape now. The only thing that we haven't done is we haven't connected this route back to our app component yet. So let's go back to app.js and let's import that as well. So import single launch from /views/single launch. Okay, and then down here I'll just put, I'll put this up here. Oh, not in the links, sorry. I'll put this right above here. We'll say single launch path equals launches and then slash ID. Okay, so now let's see if we can actually hit those links and have them work. So I'll click one of these. Wow, that was pretty fast, right? Loaded up super quickly. Nice. CRS6. Yeah, so it's working perfectly. Now, other thing is, so let's go back to our launches component real quick. What if I wanted to be able to actually programmatically navigate someone to a different route? So let's say we weren't, for some reason, we weren't using a link component because, I don't know, I filled out a form and something went well. Now I want to programmatically redirect somebody somewhere else, right? Reach Router gives us the functionality to do that. So we can what's called imperatively send somebody somewhere else. Yeah, it's going to be kind of like a redirect, but the function that they give us is called navigate. Okay, so inside our table where we were showing all of our launches, I'm going to make a slight change here. I'll just create an actions column. So this will be called actions. And then inside the actions column, so up here, create one more TD. We're going to create a little button that will allow us to view this thing. So we'll say button view, or we'll say view launch. Okay. So by default, what's that button going to do? This is a trick question. Ah, nothing, right? It's not going to do anything. It's not inside of a form. Won't do anything. But we can actually attach some sort of a submit handler to that, right? Or not a submit handler, I should say, a click handler in this case, because we're not really submitting anything. Okay, so in addition to importing link, let's also import this navigate function. Okay. And then what we're going to do is create a little click handler. So I'll say function handle click. Okay. And when the person clicks on that thing, what I want to do is I want to call this navigate function. So I'm going to navigate them to /launches, and then I want to concatenate that flight number, right? Like that. Okay, so let's just attach that here to the button. We'll say on click equals handle click. Okay, let's see what we got here. Flight number is not defined. What? Did I do that wrong? Oh, it should have been launch dot. Yeah. Whoops. Yeah, so watch out for this. Notice here I have no reference to a variable called flight number, right? I do have reference to a variable called launch. That's it. So I need to say launch.flight number. Okay, so here we are back at our launches, and I've got all these buttons that I can click on. So if I want to go to launch 16, I should be able to click my button, and lo and behold, it'll take me there, right? You guys can see up the URL. We went to launches/16. Okay? So we can use either way to get there now. And the button, again, was us being able to navigate without using the link component, because we called that function called navigate that Reach Router gives us. All right. Questions before we look at a little bit of this? Your pop quiz is coming. No, it's not so pop because you've gotten used to it. It's like, yeah. All right. Let's see. In our app.js, let's just talk about what's going on here. Lawrence, tell me what's happening up here in the top section. It's all the stuff that we're importing.
Import React from the React
Yep. Whole library.
library. And second one is logo.
Not important. It's
Third
commented
one,
out.
Yeah, CSS style.
Okay.
The first one, so we import the link router redirect from the external reach router.
Okay. This is being found where?
It's from module.
Node modules. Good. Nice.
Yeah, and import some other component
Okay.
from or from view.
Yeah, so we created a folder called views that was going to house all of our different components for the different URLs, right? Yes, Albert.
So, how do you determine what components goes in the views folder and which ones go into the components folder?
Because the ones that go in the views folder are connected to a specific URL. The ones that go in our components folder aren't necessarily connected to, like they could be smaller things that maybe multiple views are using. Yeah. All right. Let's see what's going on in app. Erica, can you kind of take us through the beginning of what's happening inside of our app JSX here? Maybe through these links is fine.
Okay, the link is outside the router, so we're not going to route to it, right?
So ultimately, yeah, it means that no matter what route we're on, this part of our app won't change.
So
It will
that's
remain
like
fixed.
the nav bar.
Yeah, essentially.
Okay, so link meaning it's going to be a link, and the first one is to the home, which is the slash forward slash.
So forward slash just means our index route. Good.
Okay. The next one is to launches.
Launches, not lunches.
The third one is to some view
Okay.
with the ID of 5.
Yep.
In that case, and then you have some view on the bottom with just ID.
Wait, where are you looking at here?
Like,
Are you
inside
talking
the
about these
router.
right here?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't ask you to do those though, but thank you. Let's move on to the router because I don't want to give like one person too much burden where it's like, oh, I gotta read the whole thing. All right, Albert, tell me about router.
Alright, well, let's see. So router is something we extracted from the reach router,
Yes, so that it's a component they gave us.
and all three of those lines that have a path in them, they're pretty much existing in these components
Mm-hmm.
that are linked to from the 3 links above. And then the redirect on line 23, it's if someone types in the wrong URL, or exactly verbatim wrong URL, it's going to redirect them to log in.
Right.
Arrow throws to stop that red error page.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm supposed to be line 28 to 30.
Yeah, well, just tell me what's happening on line 29.
Line 29. Oh, if someone it's a catch-all route.
It's a catch-all, yeah. So this is like, just in case none of these other routes match, let's go ahead and render that component. Okay. Very good. So we've done a lot inside of our launches component. Maybe we should talk about this, though, just a little bit. Francis, what's going on here inside this launch component with this handle click function?
Well, you have the function called launch,
Yeah.
and you take in this variable called launch.
Okay. So this is sort of acting like a component, right? Yeah.
And then inside that we have a function called handle click
Good.
to handle the button in the return area.
Mm-hmm.
And in there, we use the navigate that we got from Rage Router,
Right.
and then that will take in the link to launches and the flight number from the launch.
Yeah, so what we're doing is we're concatenating these two things together. So we're saying slash launches slash, and then we're just adding on the flight number to the end of it. So it gives us a proper route. Okay. All right, fair enough. I don't think we need to talk about this because we talked about it yesterday. Let's look at single launch, and this is probably where we'll spend the rest of the time. Geo, what's going on at the top up here? Mm-hmm. Okay. And what are these two things, use effect and use state?
Use state is for the current state.
Okay.
Use effect I have.
So knowing how these things are used, what are they? Erica, help him out.
Functions?
They're functions. They're just functions, right? We can call them like we call any functions, essentially. Okay. So yeah, we're importing the entire library, but we're also importing these functions from it individually so that we can use them without saying react.useEffect or react.useState. Okay? And then what are we importing right there? Can you see that online too?
Then we can import Axios.
Good. And we're using that for what again?
I don't know.
Okay. So Axios is a library that's going to allow us to make an HTTP request to some other place. Or even our own backend if we need to later on. Yeah. Okay? But we'll be doing it through JavaScript. We're not sort of loading a brand new page. We're just doing a JavaScript request. Okay. All right, line 4. Let's open up this function here. So let's just, I'll just do this part. So we're declaring a function called single launch. Our single launch is going to take in a prop called ID, right? And then at the end, I'm just simply exporting that out as my default export. Okay, cool. And then inside the function, Greg, what's going on from lines 5 to 10? What do we call this again, like over on the left-hand side?
Destruction.
We're destructuring, good.
Yeah. Use state. On the right side.
So what am I doing with use state? I want you guys to get used to every time you see parentheses like this, you know that there's a function being called, right? So it should be very obvious that, okay, we're invoking that function. Why am I passing it null, though?
Right. No.
Yeah.
So sometimes.
No, not quite. Does anyone know why I was using null there?
So when it like
There's
the page
nothing?
renders, you don't have any information.
Exactly, because when I first load it up, I don't have any of the flight information, except for this ID, but I haven't actually made the request to SpaceX yet to get the rest of the details.
So if you put the const use state underneath the use effect, how would the structure change? Can you change the null out?
If I put that under this,
Just up here.
well, remember this call right here is an asynchronous call. So you can't just assume that, oh, I've gotten past this
Oh, you're
use
right.
effect, now I have the data, right? It doesn't work that way. Yeah. All right, so Greg, keep going. We've got use effect over here. What's going on there?
We're using a callback function. Callback function.
So this one's being called. Let's be clear that the use effect function is being invoked right here. Okay. And inside our callback function, what are we doing?
Kind of importing the HTTPS.
Yeah, I guess you could sort of think of it that way. I'm sort of importing it. So I'm making a request to go get whatever this returns, right?
Yeah.
I'm making a get request. All right? And then why am I calling .then there? Bhutan, why am I calling .then? Try it. You might be right. Don't count yourself out so easily, you know? It's like
respond to it and then launch it with response data, set launch to response data.
Yeah, you're like almost right there. So after we get it back, we want to run this function that's inside there, right? That's our callback for when things go well. Okay. Did you have something you want to add to that, Max?
That's the promises, right? The Axios.get is.
Yeah, so Axios.get again is going to return us a promise. So that's why we have to chain .then to it. .then means our promise was resolved and we got back some data from their API.
So how come we don't need a fail or like
The
reject?
The
Catch this time.
It's always good to actually have it there. I didn't put it there, but yeah, like if their service was down or something like that, that would cause an error, right?
So it's usually always good to have a catch in that
Sure.
situation.
Yeah, error handling is pretty important. I was just trying to keep it simple for the purposes of the demo. Okay, good. Lines 12 through 14, Baxter.
Let's see here. Okay, if statement we're saying if our launch is equal to null, then it's going to return loading.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Did we ever really even see that?
No.
Not really, and the reason why it blinked away so fast is because our call was resolved so quickly. We got back the data from SpaceX almost right away, so instantly it updated our state, right? It did the set launch, and then it re-rendered the component. We were already seeing this stuff down here.
So if
Pretty
it's just, like,
instantaneous.
a lot of data coming in, it's going to take a long time. Then that's when we're going to see that.
Yeah, or if maybe you were making a request to some service that was on a different continent or whatever, it could take a little bit longer. It depends on a whole bunch of different factors, you know. So how robust are their servers, that kind of thing. How far away are they? All sorts of different things. Okay, cool. So I think I'm going to call it there. Any questions here? Thumbs on what we did today? Yeah, Max is getting it. Hi. Oh. Oh, Hutan. Oh, Greg. You guys have any clarifications, Greg and Hutan? Erica? You're going to have to practice this stuff, but at the same time, I do want you guys to feel like routing in here is going to be pretty straightforward. It won't be...
Is it though?
Well, isn't it when we just have a component and we say we want it to render at a specific path? That's about as simple as it gets, you know?
What if there's two parameters?
Oh, I don't know. Why is that complicated?
Because in the routing practice, it is complicated. It's asking you to provide like 2 extra parameters.
All right, so I want you guys to sort of liken this, if you can. Remember your Python urls.py? Kind of looks familiar to that in a way, right? So we've got this path here, which is the first argument you would pass to each thing that was inside your list. And then the second thing was, what's the function that you want to run when that path is hit? Hey, that function is just a component. Looks pretty similar, right? So if you guys can connect this to something that you've already done, it won't look so foreign. It'll be like, yeah, I've seen that pattern before. So a URL pattern connected with a function. That's all we're doing here. URL pattern, I was pointing the wrong thing. URL pattern, function.
Routing looks similar. The link is new.
Yeah, link is not that new because it's really just like creating an anchor tag.
Oh, okay.
And instead of href, you put 2 equals something, right? Pretty darn similar to just doing a regular href.
Oh, question. Can you that launches .js?
Yeah.
So you pass in the very beginning. You pass in launch.
Mm-hmm.
Is that like you can pass in like whatever it called, like where you get the information from? So you can call it prop.
Well, let's go down to where we're mapping through it. So here I'm saying for each launch, I want to transform it using that function, right? My launch function. So then if we go back up to the launch function, yeah, you know, I kind of agree that the words here are confusing. Launch. That's,
Which one comes from where?
I'm sorry about this.
It's like the new one.
I won't forget that. Never ever here.
It was memorable.
It is.
We're still talking about it.
Okay, let me see if I can change all of these but a few.
Not that one.
Is that a little better?
Oh yeah.
Oh, how did you do that?
I like it.
Magic. So I had one of them highlighted, and then I did Command D to keep highlighting other ones that had the exact same text.
How to
That's
remove that one?
How do I remove? I held, then I pressed Alt and I clicked on the ones I wanted to take
Oh.
away.
I want to say if you do that, like you can right click, if you have multiple things that say the same thing, right click, you can say like change instance of this. So like you can change like say you have something like 20 something, so like dot whatever, you can go like change instance and it'll change all of them.
This is now VS Code.
So if I do this and then I hover over it, is it? Oh, right click. Okay.
Find all references.
Change all occurrences. Oh yeah, that's what you mean.
And then you can just backspace
Oh.
and all.
Oh my god. This is just like when we found that emoji keyboard.
These are pro tips.
Pro tips.
Yeah.
Make it work easier.
The reason why I did it one at a time is because I think I had the word launch written down here a whole bunch of times. But yeah, that's a good one. I like it. Cool. All right, guys, let me stop the video.